Hello, everybody, and welcome along to the first Baggies podcast space, I think we'll call it. This is basically a chance for you guys, the fans, to express your views on all things Albion at the moment. Of course, a lot of stuff going on, and Ismael potentially out the door, but under a lot of pressure at the Albion at the moment, and of course the pressures of the January transfer window coming out of that as well. Only a couple of signings for Albion, but a couple of outgoings as well. So this is your chance, guys. Here we go. Daz, I think if you just unmute your mic, mate, and we can get you on. Daz, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, you're right, mate.
Yeah, not too bad. How about yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. Like you said, I got the notification from Percy, but obviously it wasn't what we were hoping for, was it?
No, I don't think it was at all. I think it's good that maybe his job is under scrutiny, but it's not quite at the point that most that we really want, which is him not at the club anymore. Obviously, it's just essentially saying what we all know, which is that he's under pressure, and that's not the be all and end all really with it. We wanted to see him essentially just leave the club, and it's not happening, is it? What are your thoughts really on him, Daz? Because it started so well really for Albion. We came out the traps firing with a high pressing style of football for probably about 5 or 6 games, but it's been pretty dire ever since, hasn't it?
Yeah, mate, it's been absolutely dreadful, hasn't it, since the Peterborough game, to be honest. Yeah, like you just said, I mean, initially I was chuffed when he got the job because, they sold us, didn't they, the plan, the 4-year plan, the identity and the future of the club. All sounded great, but like you say, it quickly went very sour, didn't it? And yeah, it's got to the point now, mate, where I don't enjoy going to the football matches. I hate it. I love going to the footy on a Saturday afternoon when Sky obviously don't interfere with our games, and just seeing my mate having a laugh, enjoying the football. And it's like, since that Peterborough game, mate, it's just been such a drag, hasn't it? It's just been, like even some of the games when we played QPR and Birmingham on those evening games, it was just... We scraped by, didn't we? And we got the wins and that, but it wasn't enjoyable. The atmosphere was terrible, and I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'll openly admit to you, mate, that I'm probably guilty of not getting involved in the atmosphere because I'm standing there and I can't even get into it, and that because the football's been dire, and it's been like that for such a long time, and I think it's really got bad, hasn't it, since the Christmas period. It's like escalated, hasn't it, apart from that Peterborough game, and let's be honest, that was a terrible game for 80 minutes until we got that first goal, and yeah, like you say, mate, he just needs to go, doesn't he? It's just not worked, and I think it's just time we move on, isn't it? It's just, I wanted it to, and unfortunately, some things, they just don't work, do they? And unfortunately, it hasn't worked. You did a podcast about a month ago when you had is it Daniel Hewitt?
Yes, yeah, Dan.
That, mate, fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Listen, that was, because everything he said, it was like every fan must be feeling that, because you hit the nail on the head. You go into the football game, you're seeing the same tactics on the 59th, 60th minute. It's the same formation. It's just so predictable, isn't it? There's nothing to like if me or you were in the opposition dugout, and that it's so predictable, isn't it? You know exactly how to play us, and yeah, mate, it's just. I want him gone, mate. I just want a fresh start, and we can move on.
Yeah, it's just not the nice place to be at the moment at the Hawthorns, because as you said, the atmosphere isn't great, and I can agree with you. I myself have been guilty, of not really been getting involved in the chants or anything going on, because it just, I don't know, it even during some of the, I suppose that Luton game is pretty I suppose special, because that was the first time we were all in the stadium together for after a few years. So that was quite nice. But after that, yeah, the Sheffield United game, maybe with the exception being an exception as well, it's quite difficult to kind of get things going.
High point of the season, wasn't it?
The
Sheffield United game, and definitely it was a great night, and you really thought we'd kick on from there. And like you say, I mean, we played bad against Peterborough, but I'll just put that down to we had an intense first 4 games, and it was going to be the international break, and we'd come back recharged and that, but it never happened. It just, yeah, I feel that's where our season kind of started going down. We haven't had we haven't been able to get that consistent run, have we? Where we could get 4 or 5 wins together. It's just not happened.
No, it just feels like it just feels like we haven't got, as you said, we just inconsistency is really the issue, because we just haven't. You see good performances like Luton, you see good performances like even Bournemouth right at the start of the season. Yes, it was a draw, but by God, that result. And that result looks twice as good now that we've ended up pinching a 2-2 draw off them. Really, the way that they're going, and especially with the additions they've made in the transfer window. I mean, we're all just got Albion fans. Most of us have got our head in our hands really after seeing the quality and the ambition from Fulham's Bournemouth's recruitment team. Sorry, it's just completely paralleled to what ours is, and obviously Daryl DK is a nice signing for us, and hopefully I'm sure he will turn out good for us. But it's obviously unfortunate with his injury. Daz, what have you made of the transfer window as a whole? Because it's not been a massively busy one. Obviously, getting that deal done relatively early in the transfer window.
Yeah, obviously DK, fantastic signing, isn't he? It's exactly what we needed. And I think, I know he took a bit of a bashing over Twitter, but I think Andy Carroll could be a bit of a smart business by us. It could work out. My only worry with that, it's obviously the style of football that Val plays. I don't think it suits any of the players that we've got. The window, I don't know, mate. I mean, I'm not overly that disappointed, because I didn't really expect that we would, to be honest. Maybe a midfielder, but there was nothing out there, was there? There was no rumours that we were linked with anyone, and it's a strange one, mate, because I mean, personally for myself, and that since Saturday, I haven't even been looking at it. I've been refreshing my feed most days and that, waiting to see if Val has been relieved of his duties, and I think that's probably been priority for me, myself, and that, because I feel that it's one of them, mate, that if he is to be relieved, and that, which it does seem, I'd be very surprised if he's not. I couldn't see why the board would agree to get any more players in that probably wouldn't suit him anyway, or what, I'm not too sure. But like you just said, mate, I mean, I was late to the party. I think I checked this morning. I saw something on Twitter of the players that Bournemouth signed, and initially I was surprised that they'd signed Dembele from Peterborough, because he's a pretty decent player, he is.
Yeah.
And then I heard they'd signed more, and then I scrolled down the comments and I saw somebody had add Todd Cantwell to that, and I was like, you are kidding me.
Yeah.
How have they signed him? And it's like, when you look at it from that perspective, it's made our transfer window a little bit disappointing. But at the same time, providing he comes back fit, and I still think DK would be a good signing. My only worry is that I hope DK signing hasn't brought Ismael more time. I'd be very surprised, because obviously it's a results-based business, isn't it? So I hope that they're not lingering onto that, because 2 months out, so we go another 2 months with these dire football games and results, and that, our season will be over before you know it. So I don't know. What about yourself? Are you what do you think of the transfer window? Was you expecting more, or disappointed by it, or?
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that maybe, with the shipping out of Hugill, obviously Snodgrass as well. I thought we may bring in a loan, be it maybe it wouldn't 100, it might not be one of Val's signings as such, but I guess you wouldn't trust anybody else, anybody on the board really, to make those sorts of decisions, really, if you think about it, without the footballing knowledge on the board and stuff. But I'd have loved to have seen another loan come in. That would have been really nice. But yeah, I think, myself included, probably overlooked the transfer window business that we've done. We can't understate how massive that DK signing on a permanent deal is. I think, even though it was on the 1st of January, and, we've all kind of just, it's a month ago today, so we've sort of swept it under the carpet a little bit. Yeah, we can't help but, that is a big move for Albion. It's a lot of money to spend in the Championship on one player. Yes, it's especially on the 1st of January as well, the preparation that probably went into that. So you've got to hope that that's hopefully the sign of things to come. But I guess that didn't really continue through the transfer window, and I guess that's why people are a bit disappointed, really, especially after seeing what Bournemouth have done, because let's face it, they have smashed it, and they've potentially brought in some Premier League quality players if they are to go up, and we'll see about that. But Daz, I'll let you go, mate. Thank you very much for coming on and expressing your thoughts. We'll let somebody else have a go, but thank you very much, Daz. Take care.
Brilliant, mate. Thanks for having me.
No worries, mate. Take care. Have a good evening, mate. Cheers.
See you later, mate. See ya.
Right, there we go. Thank you, Daz, for that. Let's welcome in West Brom Extra, if I can add you to the party. I think Mike's on mute. Hello, mate. How are you doing?
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you all fine. How are you doing, mate?
I'm not bad. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Yeah, I understood, actually, mate. I saw your tweet earlier that you may have some sort of idea of what possibly may be going on with Ismael at the moment. Do you mind talking a little bit about that?
Well, obviously, at the moment, the board are disgusting. Let's just put it that way. They are in a shambles. Effectively, they've already told Ismael. This is what I've been told, and I know various other people on Twitter have been told as well. That know people that like to give information. That Ismael he's been told that he's not going to manage another game for us, pretty much, a whole. But there is some financial implications that are stopping his sacking from going through, pretty much. On a whole, we don't have the compensation to pay him for 4 years, the whole deal, and he wants all the money. He ain't going nowhere unless he gets fully paid. Is pretty much the basis of it.
Yeah, that doesn't sound good. I mean, yeah, fair play to him for sticking to his guns, because it's kind of the board's fault really for giving out a contract with so much compensation involved in it. If they are to sack him, they've essentially got to pay him the money. But he's obviously not budging. From I've seen a few other tweets on the platform about that, and apparently he may want paying out as well. Is that correct for the clauses that might essentially give him a bonus on if he got us promoted, if he got us into automatic promotion and etc. He might want paying out on those clauses. Is that right as well?
Yeah, our board have been in discussion with his lawyers while he's been away in Munich, seeing his family, whatever. Our board have been in discussion with his people, his lawyers and stuff. He wants paying out on those clauses of getting promoted. But the board essentially, his contract works on whatever league he's in. If we get promoted to the Premier League, his contract changes basically. He'll earn more money, whatever. And there's bonuses on him getting us promoted wherever we finish in the league. He wants paid out on those. Essentially, that's pretty much what you said. He wants paid out on them.
Yeah, that's what I saw on Twitter earlier, and I think that may come across as a bit that probably is a bit unreasonable, because I think we can all accept that if he stays in charge, it's very, very unlikely that we'll get promoted this season. But just from your opinion, mate, how are you feeling about Ismael? Are you the same as most of the fan base? Are you wanting him gone, or are you willing to give him any more chances?
No, effectively, I want him gone. I've been told that he ain't managing another game for us. So next one, Sheffield United, I'm told he won't be in charge for that game. Whether he's still under our books, whether we're still paying him, but we're just moving him to one side and letting someone else do it. That's another thing. But effectively, I've been told that he won't be in charge for that Sheffield United game. Whether the board go back on their word or not, we'll see. But that's what they've said to him. He understands it. The shock thing with that Percy, that he's running that training tomorrow, I'm not too surprised on it, because he's still under contract. Obviously, he's still the manager of our club, so he's going to be there, obviously. But it's just a shambles, really, that the board are allowing him to continue basically doing the training. The players don't want him there. It's a bit, they've come out and said no one wants him at the club.
Yeah. Probably, yeah. That is, yeah. I mean, we'll see what happens with that. But thank you very much for adding that in, mate. That's really appreciate that. Thank you. That's incredibly helpful to hopefully get Albion fans a better understanding as to what's going on. But thank you very much for that, mate. Take care, and we'll add Adam in. I think he's going to be hopping on after requesting to join. If we can add him on as a speaker, let's bring him in. It says connecting still. We'll see what happens there. Hi Adam, how are you doing, mate? Can you hear me? Is he muted? Possibly. I'll mute and unmute. We'll see. I don't think. Adam, are you okay? Can you hear me all right? No, I don't think Adam can hear us. Might be an issue with his mic. We'll remove Adam temporarily until, obviously, feel free to request to join again, mate, and we can see if we can get you on again. Let's see who else fancies coming on and having a little chat about the Albion. See if we can find anybody else who's requested to join. Feel free to just drop a little request. We can have a chat about what's going on at the moment at the club. I don't think we've actually got any requests at the moment. Let's welcome in Robbo. Oh, hang on. We got two on at the same time. Hang on. Oh, hang on. Hi, Robbo. How are you doing, mate?
Hello, mate. You alright?
Yeah, not too bad. How about yourself?
Yeah, not bad, mate. I've got 1 point for this. Excuse me, the contract. Now, I was speaking to someone the other day, and they made a valued point of the fact that in the last, I mean, he even said it on the Liquidator podcast about the fact that no Championship manager in the last few years has ever gone past 12 months, or just over 12 months. Now, since 2019 maybe. Now, I find it hard to believe that our board, if they have any sort of, I don't know, I mean, it has come out that they haven't got none of them have got a football brain. However, there must be somebody there with the slightest football brain, or a contract brain, so to speak, to know that in the past, the Albion in the Championship don't stick with managers longer than just over 12 months. And in the Championship as a whole, they don't stick with managers for just over 12 months. They're gone. Now, as far as I'm concerned, if I was on that board, I'd be saying to Ismael, at the start of the summer, I'd be saying, here you are, your 4-year contract. However, if within that first 12 months, in that first season, you're sacked, this is what we will pay out. Well, now I don't know what the contract is, and obviously a lot of people won't. And whatever it is, whatever it is. But I honestly, I mean, I'm not Val out and I'm not Val in. However, the first point is, who do we get in? Because there's nobody about. And the second point is basically, who else is going to get anything out of this squad? The past 3 managers, including obviously Ismael, Bilic and Allardyce. Allardyce was as blunt can be. This squad are aged. They're crap, basically, for want of a better word. And until he can implement his own squad, I mean, all right, he bought DK and he's injured. If he hadn't been injured, I think that might have been a catalyst for a little bit of upturning in my opinion. And with Carroll now in, I think when DK comes back, that could be the focal point of our front line, as far as I'm concerned. And maybe Grant as well, because the others are not doing it. Now, who else is going to get it? I mean, people are saying to me, Clark's been a revelation. He's been all right, but that defending for the second goal on Saturday was comical. We're asking these players to do the simplest of football things. The simple thing in football is to pass to another member of your team. How hard can it be? Against Derby, Clark was was getting the ball from Johnston. It was then going to Townsend back to Clark back to Johnston, and then it was coming back. And then because there was nothing on, Clark was banging it up the left-hand side, and it was going straight out for a throw-in. I don't know, mate. I'm not. I want him to go. I do want him to go, but I want him to stay and implement the plan. And I believe his plan is to bring the under-23s on and get them in. Now, there is quality in there, and that's why these lads are being loaned out. Because when they come back in the summer, they'll have a bit of a league experience behind them. But as far as the rest of the squad go, and as far as his contract and all the rest of it, I'm rambling on a little bit, but I do believe that he's definitely going to be there for the Sheffield United game. I can't see why they would keep him on, put him on gardening leave, pay him, and then pay somebody else. Because as far as I'm concerned, who else in that club is going to is going to stand up to it. I don't think Morrison's up to it, and I'm hearing rumblings that Morrison's the problem, and Brundy's not going to do it because he's not ready yet. So who else is there to do it?
Yeah, that's exactly the point. You want to kind of bring through those young academy players. You want to sort of let them in, but if Ismael is being in a way let down by some of these senior pros and some of the players that as you said, Clark's defending was shocking for that goal, so I don't want to specifically single him out, but his defending was shocking, and there's been several other shocking performances this season. If they're the players that are letting them down, the question I would have for Ismael is why does he keep playing them? Why, if those players consistently let him down, why does he want to keep them in the side and keep them playing under him, really, if they're all letting him down?
I mean, yeah, totally, I get that. And then the thing is if these players that are constantly letting him down, if he puts them on the bench, who does he put in? He puts the youngsters in. And what happens if the Arsenal thing happens where, these lads get battered, their confidence is gone. I don't think they're ready yet, but I just don't know where we go with this, because I don't believe he's going to get the sack. I've heard that he's going to get to the end of the season, and I'm not an in the know type of person at all. But I just can't see why they would get rid of him, pay him all that money, whatever they're going to pay him, to bring somebody in who, let's face it, if Allardyce couldn't get a tune out of these guys, who else is going to get one?
Yeah, that's exactly it. You do fear, especially as you said, with the lack of footballing brains up at board level, you do fear for who they might select next, and could that potentially be even worse? It could end up being 10 times as worse if it's not the right guy. But Robbo, thank you very much for that insight. That's a really good point you make there. Thank you. Take care, mate. We'll remove you as a speaker. Thank you very much. We'll let Tom in, as I saw he was requesting to speak earlier. Tom was the last guest on the podcast. Tom, how are you, mate? Welcome.
How's it going, buddy? You alright?
Yeah, not too bad. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate.
Yeah, so Tom, you were the last guest, as I said, on the podcast. Yeah, obviously your take on things was pretty clear. You've given Ismael a fair chance, but it's for you it's probably about time that he departed.
Yeah, I think the main reason behind that, mate, is just due to the fact that he's lost the fan base, hasn't he? Just listening to that chap who you were just speaking to just then, I think he talked a lot of sense, to be honest with you, because when I asked to have a chat, I was going to say that obviously there's all this talk at the moment about Val holding the club to ransom with his contract and stuff. But I think you hit the nail on the head, Megan, that, okay, these guys haven't got any sort of football brain between them, have they? But they're all businessmen at the end of the day, aren't they? And they're paid millions of pounds. So if people honestly believe that they've just given this guy a 4-year contract with no sorts of clauses in there or anything like that whatsoever, I think it's a bit daft, to be honest, mate. I think ultimately what's happened is he's, from what I've read, he's gone to see his family because there's a bit of break now, isn't there, between the two matches, and that he comes back tomorrow. I think ultimately, a decision is probably going to be made towards the latter end of the week, when he's back at the club, isn't it? Obviously there's lots of speculation, lots of rumours flying around, etc. But I just don't believe for 1 minute that Val has got this kind of, this contract.
The unbreakable contract, really, isn't it? Apparently,
the club have got to pay him out not only on his 4 years that he signed up to, but also on all the potential bonus clauses as well. Like I said, these guys, all right, in terms of footballing decisions, they've been absolutely terrible. But they get lawyers involved, don't they? Top profile lawyers involved in these sorts of things. I can't see them I'll be absolutely astonished, shall I say, if that is the case. I just think ultimately it's just a lot of talk, isn't it? And he's back in the country tomorrow, from what I've read, so we'll probably get some answers towards the end of the week, whether he's staying or going. And that's pretty much what the last chap said. I was just gonna say, there's a similar thing, really.
Yeah, it's you'd hope that the board, for all, as you said, for all their footballing knowledge and flaws, that they would have, a business brain between them, and they'd be able to suss out, if this manager, obviously at the start of the reign, they obviously believed that he was the guy to take us over a 4-year plan. That's probably not the case anymore, but surely there's clauses in it to sort of break it up and say that, even if you're not at this point by, the end of, the end of the season or by the end of January or something, then, then we have the power to sort of let you go, but not in that, not by paying all of those, especially those bonuses potentially if he gets promoted. I think that would be ridiculous if they haven't put anything to stop that. But Tom, we mentioned briefly on the podcast that was out on Monday about a replacement. I mean, it's not a pretty bunch to select from. Are there any names that might come to mind that would tickle your fancy in terms of a new head coach if Ismael is to go?
Well, like we discussed in the podcast, mate, it's there's slim pickings out there, isn't there, really, at the moment? Because I can't, for 1 minute, see the club, if they have to pay Val out, for them to then pay a head coach, manager out from the club that they're with currently. They're going to go for someone who's out of work, aren't they? And like we were discussing, there's just not really any great names out there currently. Who we could attract. But like I said to you, I just personally feel that we need a really strong character who can come in and just give the players a kick up the arse. Because again, like the last chap you were chatting to, I think. Val is most definitely, he's most definitely deserving of this criticism that's being aimed towards him. His stubbornness and his unwillingness to change tactics and formation, etc., etc. But I don't think for 1 minute that the players are getting anywhere near enough stick that they deserve. Because there's only so much a head coach can do. But the attitude of the players, especially of late, and the effort levels, and like you said, just basic things like passing to one another. It's just been absolutely atrocious. I think they need to be held more accountable as well. So for me, it needs someone who's not willing to come in and say things, give them a real kick up the arse and say, I don't care if you're a senior guy here, you dropped because you ain't doing well enough. So, but I don't really know who's out there. We had a little chat about Steve Bruce, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
That would go down. You could imagine that would go down amongst the Albion fans.
Yeah.
I don't know, mate. I don't know who. I honestly don't.
Yeah, it's a difficult situation for us to be in, but you have to argue that the board have put ourselves in this difficult situation by, giving a manager who, I'll admit, at the start of his reign and when I saw the 4-year deal, I was quite excited by the potential of a long-term vision, a long-term, plan, and, potential, different ethos. I'm a big sucker for pressing football. I love watching it. That's probably my, if I had to pick that to watch, it would probably be that. But we've been sold a bit of a dream, and it is slowly turning into, well, I say slowly, it has slowly turned into a real nightmare for a lot of Albion fans. But Tom, a massive thank you for hopping on, and take care, mate. And I'll just remove you as a speaker if that's okay. And
mate, speak to you soon. Take care.
Yeah, chat to you soon, mate. Thank you. Take care. There we go. Tom, thank you very much for your thoughts. I will let Chris in, Bewdley Baggie, who I saw request just after Tom. Chris, if you just unmute your mic, and we should be good to go. How are you, Chris, mate? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can, mate. Yeah, no. I can hear you loud and clear. I just want to say I agree with a lot of the points of the people who've been on previously. However, I have a feeling that the players are as culpable as Val is for the current situation.
Yeah. Okay, so, yeah, well, obviously they've seen off a couple of managers now, I suppose you could say. There's been Allardyce, there's been Bilic. There's a core group of players there that have been there for 3 years. Some of them been up to 5, I think, if we look back. What do you think that they've essentially done to kind of not been pulling their weight of late?
Well, you just look at the performances that there's obviously been the fallings out with certain players. Snodgrass, Sam Johnson one really confused me, and I think that Val is probably going along the right line in trying to reel him in, but he's getting a lot of pushback. And by the sounds of it, there's some very influential players in that dressing room that could probably turn the ear of the other players as well. against the manager in some cases, and I can't see any other manager getting around that other than to have a massive clear out, and I'm probably not alone in that opinion.
Yeah, but I hear you, mate. I get that. It's just, you look at Snodgrass and you look at the character, that he was, by the sounds of things around the dressing room, really lively, really, sort of, the kind of guy you want around the dressing room, really, guy that could keep spirits up. But, I think the news was potentially that he took a bit of a dislike to the issue with statistics and data that Ismael seems to, really, really get into. If you see that he's obviously, could be a massive influence in that dressing room, a senior pro, has been around the block, obviously played for so many teams, and if he's turning against the manager, that, as you said there, it could potentially spread, and the attitude, in football especially, is so infectious, really, among teams. You see a senior pro turn against the manager, and by the next day, the rest of the team could potentially be in that boat as well. Chris, obviously the transfer window's been and gone now. Is there anything that you'd have liked to have seen us done that would, potentially make you happier, really, as a fan, make the experience a bit more enjoyable in terms of, watching the players and indeed the manager?
To be honest, a lot of people call for a bit of a strengthening in midfield, and yeah, I agree with that in part. But I think the inflexibility of Val's style with the 3-4-3 is the biggest bugbear of mine. I mean, if you just go to, say, a 3-5-2, you get that extra man in midfield, and it stops you being overrun, which I feel at some points this season we've lost the midfield, and that's your engine room, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, I mean, Andy Carroll, actually, looking back on it, I saw him coming in and I was like, oh, Andy Carroll. It's a bit of a, well, he's probably scored the most goals against us out of anybody. So if he can score goals for us, that's a great thing. But that was another knee-jerk reaction from the club, as far as I'm concerned. Smacks of what we've been doing for 3 or 4 seasons now, where we just don't have anything in a certain position and we just go, well, who's available? Oh, we'll sign them.
Yeah, it's just
remains to be seen.
Yeah, I think, if you, I can't remember when Val said this, but I think he said about, this is not the West Brom of old. We're not panicking in these transfer windows. We've come in well prepared. I guess you can't prepare for. I suppose you could prepare for a DK injury, a long-term one like that. But it's a difficult situation for any manager really to deal with. And I suppose Andy Carroll was a bit of a mark of desperation. But in the long haul, well, I say long haul, maybe he is on a short-term deal. But in the long run, as into the end of the season, could provide you with a couple of goals. I guess he suits the direct style that Ismael is going for. But if Ismael is not going to be the manager for much longer, then if a manager comes in and wants to play nicer football, then potentially there isn't a place for Andy Carroll. It's just what I don't get is the shift in between styles constantly. That really frustrates me as a fan to watch. 1 minute we're playing, Bilic ball, and the next minute we've got Allardyce through the door who's trying to carve out results in the Premier League. It's difficult to kind of keep us keep to a style when the manager is changing left, right, and centre. And yeah, it's difficult at the moment, Chris. But thank you very much for dropping in and sharing your thoughts, mate. That's a good point that you make there about the players, and hopefully that could be one that is raised further throughout this little Albion space. But thank you very much, Chris, and take care.
No worries, mate. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you very much to Chris. Let's welcome in Joe, as I spotted him there. He's been waiting a while, to be honest. Joe, how are you doing, mate?
I'm very good, thank you, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, Joe. You were on the podcast. I think it must have been about 3 months ago now. You're pretty optimistic, if I recall rightly. It was kind of you were hoping for things weren't going overly well at the time, but you were hoping that things could be turned around. How are you feeling with things at the moment?
Well, I think I agree with most of the fan base. Really, I am Val out. I think I was Val in for a long period of time, even through kind of like when we drew against Barnsley and lost against Derby, I think at that point I was still Val in, but then after kind of Millwall and Preston, I have been Val out. But I was optimistic at the start of the season. I really, really wanted this to work. I liked the idea of the 4-year plan. I liked the idea of having a kind of structure to how we're going to do things in the future, having a long-term vision. But ultimately, it's not worked out really for us.
No, it hasn't, and a lot of fans feel the same as you, and myself included. As I said earlier, I was really excited to see a potential long-term vision. I saw a coach that was willing to use youth players, willing to bring those players in, and hopefully mould to a specific style and stay that way really for the next 4 years, rather than over the past 4 years we've seen so many styles tried to be implemented, but ultimately we haven't seen too much of a change in the playing staff really. We haven't seen too many players come and go really. It's just kind of been the same sort of flat bank of players, and different managers are coming in expecting to do different things. Joe, how are you feeling about the players? Because as I think Chris said there, he feels that they're not 100%. They're not really out of the blame. They deserve to be lobbed in with Ismael. Really, how are you feeling towards the players as well as the manager?
Yeah, I completely agree. Really, I think some of the players definitely are causing the problem. They aren't. I don't know whether they're not playing for Val, or he's lost the dressing room, or they're just kind of not buying into his vision, or they just are really unfit. I think I remember reading something about how the players were really unfit after Bilic, after lockdown. So I don't know whether that's a continuation of that. It was a while ago, but I'm not sure really. But I do think the players. I'm not gonna. I might name some actually.
Go for it, mate. Go for it.
I think Johnston. I don't know whether it's because of the past kind of last game or whenever he was dropped against Preston. I think that maybe was one of the players. I think he also lost Snodgrass, and I think Hugo came out with quotes today saying he can't really explain what's gone on at West Brom. But so I think something's happened in the dressing room that's made Val lose the players. Really, I think either something's been said or something's happened. There's been a bust up, and the players are starting playing for him, I think.
Yeah, it certainly looks like that, doesn't it? It's annoying because you could say under Big Sam when he first came in, obviously he did end up turfing out quite a few players and decided that they weren't maybe for him, and that's kind of the result of a guy who knows his way through English football and knows how to get the best out of players. And he saw a number of the players and said, "You're not quite good enough, or you're not going to be the guys I want in the Premier League." I guess with Val, he's persisted with a lot of them, and even though that recently they've certainly been, I agree that Val's tactics have not been appetising at all and not been able to change the game. But you can make the point that the players, have really let him down of late with perhaps a lack of effort. But as you said, he's obviously some fallings out have led to perhaps the whole squad causing issue with it. Do you think that he's lost the dressing room 100%, Joe, or is it in any way still salvageable?
I'm not sure really. I think there's some players, some real professionals. I think maybe people may blame Livermore for kind of not trying and being kind of a scapegoat for it, but I think Livermore might be kind of one of the model professionals in the dressing room, just kind of making sure that everyone's trying to still play for West Brom. It's not trying to not play for the manager. But I think he's probably lost maybe 60% of the dressing room. I'm not sure though. It's just a guess.
Yeah, of course. You said at the start. You said that you probably you come to terms with it. As myself, as I wanted to give him as much of a chance as possible, but you said it at the start. You are Valer in the end. Can you see him going? I know that maybe that's how you're feeling, how you're swaying, and you want him to leave. But can you see him leaving? Especially with all the compensation that may have to come out of it.
I can maybe see him leaving if we lose maybe our next 2 games. I think then the pressure will really be on. But the question is, who are we going to appoint, really? Because you've got, the only managers I can realistically see us getting are the ones out of work. The one, realistically, if we were able to pay compensation for Val and another manager, the one manager I would like to see, I think I mentioned it on my Twitter, I don't think I've seen anyone else mention it, is Ben Garner at Swindon. He was the assistant manager under Pulis, but he actually has the most possession. He has statistically the most possession in League 2 at the moment.
Okay.
I know we're kind of, when we were at Village Ball, we used to having above 55% possession, kind of tiki-taka passes. So he might be an option long term. He's a young manager. That's who I personally want if we're going to go now. But it will probably end up with someone like Steve Bruce.
Yeah, it probably will, mate. You don't trust exactly who they're going to bring in next. You'd like an up and coming manager, a young guy to kind of take it over. But can you really trust a young manager with this squad who potentially could throw him under the bus? And do you really trust the board to make the right decision? But Joe, thank you very much for that. Really appreciate your thoughts, mate. Take care. I'll just remove you as a speaker. Thank you very much, Joe. Let's welcome in Ryan, as I spotted him as a speaker earlier on. I feel bad because there's quite a few people waiting, but we'll try and get through as many as possible. Ryan, how are you doing, mate? Ryan, can you hear me okay? Ryan's mic might be muted, so let's have a go at muting it for him. Any luck, Ryan? Can you hear me all right? It doesn't sound like Ryan can hear us. Right, Ryan, I'll just remove you as a speaker for now, mate. If you want to request to join again, and we can try and get you back on maybe if things are working a little bit better. I'm not sure what's going on, but I can't quite hear you. We'll remove you from speaker for now, and we'll try and get you back on a bit later on in the show. Let's get Ronan on and see what he has to say. Ronan, how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad as well. I'll probably be better maybe next week if we maybe potentially have a different manager. But Ronan, how are you feeling about all things Albion? Obviously, you've been on the podcast as well. How are you feeling with things at the moment?
I'm feeling kind of confused, honestly. I feel like this is such a difficult situation, a situation that we're not used to being in as a club. And I've been quite refreshed to hear a lot of people talking tonight are putting more blame on the players than I thought. Well, I suppose it's appeared. A lot of people are putting it on Val. I certainly put a large proportion of the blame on him. But it's nice to know that I think, a lot of the fans are starting to wake up to the fact that these players are just not up to scratch. And I've kind of got three points that I've been working on with WBA report on our brief for the next podcast. And one of the main questions that I've got is, after the 30-odd game, well, coming up to 30 games now for Val, does he know his best 11? I mean, that in itself is a huge worry for me. That's a huge red flag. And it's not just that. It's not just him being indecisive. Who is out there on the pitch staking their claim week in, week out? Someone scores a goal, say Robbo scores a goal in a game, and he'll start the next 2 games, and then Val's got no option but take him off for the next couple because he's been so out of form. Like, it's horrible. The players haven't been stepping up to the mark whatsoever, and I think that's as much on them as it is on Val.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. I mean, how do his best lineup? I mean, I think must change every few weeks because he gets these little sort of dribbles of form from players, and then all of a sudden, they go back out of form. It's like it's essentially a metaphor for the whole squad at the moment. Really, you get a little patter of form. Really, you get this essentially a 3-0 win against Peterborough. You see 15 minutes of passion. You see 15 minutes of effort and attacking play, and then the next game you feel like you're back at rock bottom again. There, as you said, there isn't really any consistency in individual players' form, or in the consistency as amongst the whole squad as a whole. But I guess one positive, at least Val is consistent. I mean, he's certainly going to pick the same tactics every time. I mean, that's one thing we can say about consistency, is that he's at least been the same. Any other points that you wanted to make there, Ronan? Because that was a good one you made there. It's confusing as to whether he will pick, who he will pick, and whether he actually gets his best lineup every time.
Yeah, exactly. And you're talking about consistency there, and what I want to come on is that we've been consistently bad. Like, even when we were getting results in these wins, say against QPR, Peterborough, Blackburn, did we actually play well? Sheffield United, Coventry, Bournemouth, I might be missing maybe 1 or 2 games. They are the only good games in his 20-30 games in charge. Like, even when we were edging out these games against the likes of QPR quite dramatically, I mean, the lads were getting booed at half time, rightly or wrongly. They were getting booed. The performances haven't been there. It's been a nervous watch. It's been a boring watch for far too long. And that, I mean, Is that a stylistic thing? Probably. It's probably the players not taking to it, decided they're not going to take to it. But mate, the more I think about it, on the weekend I was definitely Val out. I still am. I think I still am. But I look at the players. Livermore, he's been out of form for 2 years, and he's been awful this year. Grant is okay, but he's not worth 12 million. And he's clearly not good enough to propel us up the league like Solanke, like Mitrovic, like Brereton Diaz. Matt Phillips peaked 5 years ago, and he's been scratching for form since then. Bartley's a face-pulling, set-piece pushing referee intimidator who's flat out not good enough. He's not good enough to take us up. He has always been a bog-standard championship defender, and you can't really change my mind on that, sadly. Johnston has actually been average this year, pulled off some unbelievable saves, was heroic last year, but he hasn't been committed ever since we got relegated. Furlong's been subpar, and he's living off that long throw. It's like how Robson kind of won a Cruyff turn. but this is the core group of players that we're relying on, that these youngsters like TJX, like O'Shea, they're the ones they're looking up to. And how can you replace them? We can't. We won't be able to replace them. We put half of them on an extra year's contract this year. And now it's got to the point where it's easier to say goodbye to Val and replace him and try and appease a fan base which is upset, conflicted, and rightly so. And we're tired. We're tired. I'm sick of the Val out debate. Not that we shouldn't be having it, but that it's been rumbling on for so long. It's just stinking up the club, mate. It's not what it was. Like when we had Bilic in charge, we were united. We loved the club, and Val can't bring that because of the players that he's got at his disposal.
Do you think that obviously the style has caused a lot of issues? I think, let's face it. I mean, I thought say the first 6 games weren't your conventional sort of entertaining type of football, but it was entertaining in its own way. It was like basketball matches throughout those first 6 games. Obviously, the style has caused a lot of issues for a lot of fans, and probably rightly so. To be honest, it's not the prettiest. It's a real big debate, really, in football as general. Apart from maybe aside from West Brom, would you take that sort of a prettier style of football if it meant say you had this sort of pretty style of football, but you were getting the same results as Val is now? Do you think that fans might be a little more acceptant to how things are going?
I think it's as much as the kind of results that we get in. We're not scoring goals. It's all good and well having the ball down on the floor and playing nice stuff, kind of like Bilic-esque. But these fans are turning up to the Hawthorns. We're either going to be 1-0 down, or it's going to be goalless at half time. And then you're looking forward to the second half, wondering, are they going to sneak the only goal of the game, or are we? More often than not, it's either them or neither right now. It is just not good enough. The fact that we've had 3 away goals in 10 games.
Yeah.
That is simply not good enough. Darren Moore got sacked because we didn't win. We lost 3 home games in a row. And this is what the away fans, and the support has been fantastic. I know it was marred by some behaviour on the weekend, which we shouldn't stand for. But the away support this year has been brilliant. When we went to Coventry, the Coventry fans were hailing us as the best away fans they've seen. At the Rico or whatever it's called now, all season. And the fans deserve better. It's the style isn't nice to watch. It really isn't. And maybe we have been spoilt in the past, bar the Pulis era. But it's not whether we've got the ball down on the floor playing. It's the goals, it's the commitment, it's players that want to play for us. And for so long, it's looked like it's guesswork. We've been so uncommitted. And again, it's these same players that I've mentioned at the start, which are kind of living off the fact that the club doesn't have enough money to provide competition. And I feel like Val's going to be the scapegoat for all of this. The style should be better, the results should be better, but bottom line, mate, the players should be better.
Yeah, I hear you, mate. Do you think that do you think there's a possibility that we keep Val on, and potentially in the summer there is a what is a well overdue rebuild? Let's face it. Do you think that that's a potential option for the board at the moment? Could that be something that's going through their mind? Obviously, we can't read their minds, but do you think that should be something they're considering?
I mean, based on some stuff that has kind of been leaked out and put on fan forums from an in-the-know source, it looks as though the board really like the fact that Val is super disciplined and he's quite authoritarian in the dressing room. Now, obviously, that's upset some senior pros. We've seen Snodgrass leave. I think that counts in his favour. I also think the fact that they've just spent $7 million on DK, it's really unfortunate that he has got injured, because as someone was saying earlier in this Twitter space, how different things could look if he bagged a couple on the weekend and if he spearheaded the attack. But I don't see how, with the players that he's got, he's going to get performances. And I think the board are kind of sharp enough to realise that the fans aren't going to put up with it for much longer. They've already been calling for it, so there's banners at the stadium. And maybe if we got a few more bodies in, and it could be a bit more of a Val type squad, he would have been okay. He would be able to last until the summer, but I just don't see it, mate. I feel like the writing's on the wall, and either we're trying to scrape some coppers together to try and pay his compensation, or the board is giving him every last opportunity. But I feel like his days are numbered, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely, Ronan. I hear you. Thank you very much for joining me, mate. That was
Pleasure, mate. Thank you.
a nice point you made there. Thank you very much, Ronan. Take care. We'll remove Ronan as a speaker, but thank you very much for joining us. Let's try Devonshire Baggies, who I think is connecting as we speak. Hi, mate. How are you doing? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, all good, mate. How are you doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you, very well.
Yeah, so what do you want to say, mate? How are you feeling about the current situation at the club?
I mean, it's toxic. I think that's the word to describe it. I think in my sort of 25 years supporting the club, I think maybe a small time towards the end of the Pardew era, I've never known it be like this. Completely agree with the last couple of speakers. I think the players have got to take a heck of a lot of responsibility. I think there was an article that came out last year in The Athletic before the Chelsea game, which was Maitland-Niles pulled the lads together for a team meeting, if I'm correct.
Yes.
And I think that said a lot about the players that we've got. If a young lad on loan from Arsenal is having to get the lads together and say, fucking hell, boys, pull your socks up here. I think, that says a lot about the core group. The first thing that Allardyce did when he came in was drop Livermore. I think his disciplinary record is abysmal. I think he puts in the odd good performance, and I think he's a leader, but I just don't think he's anywhere near good enough. And I think, what a lot of the other guys have said resonates with me. There's just a core group of players that have been here for 3-4 years that are just nowhere near good enough. There's a reason there's never been interest in any of them. And I think that, a lot of this stems back to the recruitment, really. I think the recruitment, certainly since Ashworth left, has been really poor. I think particularly when we went up under Bilic, I think bringing in Robinson, Grant and Grady, obviously Grant and Grady for big money. I think the three of them are left wingers. I think they all play best when they're out on the left. And I think to have invested so heavily in three players, they're all playing the same position, the likes of Ivanovic coming in. I just think I think this has been coming for a number of years. Unfortunately, I think Vass will take a lot of the blame, but I think the problem lies much bigger than Valerien and Ismael at West Bromwich Albion, to be honest. Yeah,
I the players do have to take the blame. It's been said a few times throughout the chat here, but it's the players have been seen off. A couple of managers now. Some of them will have seen off. I think if you look at somebody like Phillips, he's probably seen off about four or five, maybe even more than that. Do you think that Ismael, obviously he does deserve some of the blame because of the way that he's set the team up and hasn't got the results that Albion need? Do you think that there's as I said to Ronan, do you think there's a possibility of leaving him in until the summer and seeing potentially some players be shipped out and see what happens when you give him the chance to get his players in?
Honestly, no. I think money will talk. It wouldn't surprise me. I think particularly for Leeds or Sheffield United, if attendance started to drop below sort of 18,000, 19,000 at the Hawthorns, and I think money will talk. I think the more empty seats there are in the stadium, I think the more toxic the atmosphere becomes, the worse the results get. I think there comes a point where actually paying Val whatever it needs to get him gone, if it means that the atmosphere around the club and fans start coming back. I mean, I'm based in Devon, and I have absolutely no interest for the first time in coming up and spending 60 quid on the train, 25 quid on the ticket to come and watch West Bromwich Albion under Valerien and Ismael. I think it's poor. I think it's dross. I think it's centre-backs hooping balls up, aimlessly. I do feel for him with the Darryl Dyke situation, DK rather.
Yeah.
It's very unfortunate. But at the same time, the amount of pressure that's put on one young lad's shoulders, that shouldn't define West Bromwich Albion. I think there's too many players that have been stealing a living for too long, and it always resonates with me. And I'll say the point again: when a 21, 22-year-old who was on loan from Arsenal for 4 months took it into his own hands to call a team meeting with senior pros who'd been at the club and been on big money for a number of years, that says it all about this squad. I think there's a lot of prima donnas, a lot of lads who are stealing a living there, who think they're much better than they are. And going back to a Ronan point there about Val, I think there's a lot of games this year where the football has been awful, the performances have been awful, but thanks to a moment of brilliance from a 15 million, grant or a lucky goal or, something. I think, I can't remember the exact game it was where we won 2-1. It might have been the QPR at home where there was a keeper howler, and I think Grant had a good finish, and it was just one of those games where apart from that, we just didn't play well. So I think Val's got to take responsibility. I think he's been trying to flog a dead horse pretty much since the first 4 or 5 games of the season. But I think the long-term issue here is no matter who you put in charge, the likes of Bilic, Big Sam, Valerien, Ismael, they're all different types of managers, and unfortunately they just can't get a tune out of this group of players. On the other side to that, we've got a chairman that does not want to put his hand in his pocket, and so I worry that we just don't have the resources available to sort of do the squad overhaul that's needed.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I hear you. I think there is a squad overhaul needed, definitely, but it's who they. I guess I don't quite trust the board to make the right decisions and footballing calls when there isn't really a guy who knows his football really on the board. But mate, thank you very much for dropping in and giving your thoughts. Really appreciate that. Thank you very much, and take care. Just remove him from the speakers. Thank you very much. I think we've got about time for one more. So let's have Adam on because we tried him earlier. And it didn't quite work. Adam, are things okay now? Can you hear me all right? Hello, Adam. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, good, you?
Yeah, not too bad. Adam, what are your thoughts on the situation at the club at the moment?
I just want to get everyone's views on this. So, say Val goes and brings someone in. They change the way we play. How we got the players to change to that possession-based football, because 2 years back, we had the best player in the Championship by far that year, and that was Mateus Pereira. And he was one of those players where he was unpredictable. He'd play that pass, or he'd make a move, he'd do that body feint, or something that you just think, wow, he'd create a goal out of nothing, really. I remember that pass against Hull with Grzyski.
Yeah.
He just whipped it round the left back, and Grzyski was through. Have we got those type of players play that possession-based football if someone comes in and changes it all? Have we got those type of players? So I personally see good footballers, as in Diangana, who's good, Grant can finish, Robinson, on his day is good, but the midfield, Livermore, bang average, Mowat hasn't been great, then I know Taylor God Hickman's played well, Malumbi, same as Livermore, holding midfielder, really. We haven't really got that creativity that I think we desperately need if we want to play possession-based football. Yeah, we've got DK who's going back and he looks a handful, and hopefully he'll score some goals. But I just think the club's on a massive decline where I think without investment, and obviously we probably won't get this investment, where are we going to be in a few years' time if we don't get that star player like Pereira? That's my only thought. Where are we going to be? It's just going downhill.
Yeah, I think Pereira, it's an interesting talking point again, with Pereira. That squad did, he got them out of a lot of trouble, really, at times, in games in both the Championship and the Premier League. He, as you said, with those passes, that bit of that, eye for a pass that, possibly many in the ground couldn't even see. He was that sort of player that could dig a team out of a hole when they played dreadfully, and they'd still come out with a victory or a good result because he's ended up being the difference between the two sides. We don't have a Pereira. In my personal opinion, I'm not quite convinced the midfield. Centre midfield is what it should be to play possession-based football. I think there's a bit of strength in the wide areas in terms of. I think Diangana, if you get him on form, if you have him in the role that I think that he should be played in, which is essentially hugging the touchline and stretching an opposition defence, but and I'm sure Grant could do a similar job cutting in from that left hand side. The midfield is a serious mark for concern. Maybe Mowat I feel like Mowat could be a better footballer than perhaps Ismael is letting him be. Really, I feel like he's better than lumping it over the defence. If he was given a system in which the games aren't so cluttered, maybe he could be a bit better. Adam, in your personal view, do you obviously you said there that we may struggle to adapt to a possession-based side. Do you think that it's a case of do you think you would keep Val, or is he definitely gone for you?
No, he's definitely gone for me.
me. I mean, I went to Millwall on Saturday. It was awful. It was really bad. I think it's got to a stage where we're just that predictable. You've got sides who just, sit back, maybe take a point. Preston took 3, Millwall took 3. And I just think, I liked, at the start, like many people, I liked the way the 4 years, the Sheffield United game, really good, high, intense pressing. But, yeah, I just think we're being found out. And unfortunately, as I said, I liked it, the way it was progressing as the 4 year like long-term plan, but I just think he's got to go, really. I don't know who to get in, really. I mean, Morrison, is he fit for it? Would he really know what he's doing? Obviously, I don't think we're paying him money to get Mowbray. There's little talks there, but who are we going to bring in as well? That's the big question.
Yeah.
I'm obviously Valet 100%. I just think, yeah, he's had his time at the Albion where, yeah, he came in, but it just hasn't worked, has it, really?
No, it hasn't, and you do not. As I've said several times throughout this, you do not trust the board to make the decision that would potentially, put you in the right position as a club and put you in the right place to get forward and have probably a squad overhaul that's needed. It's in maybe.
My big point is, in this summer we we got Phillips, Furlong, Bartley, 3-year contracts.
Yeah.
Well, who's really going to have Phillips? I bet he's on a load. Bartley, yeah. Who's really going to go for him? Furlong, I think's been average and should be performing better.
Yeah.
And then you got Livermore? I don't know if I read this right. He extended his own 1-year contract or something.
Yeah, he had I think he had his contract automatically extended because of the amount of appearances he's made this season. So I don't think that was. Well, I suppose you could say that's the club's fault for sticking that clause in there. Obviously, he's played over the threshold of games to extend his contract. But yeah, he's now here until the summer of 2023, by the looks of things.
Yeah, I mean, it's going downhill when Tays should have been gone how many years back, who've gone through successive managers. Yeah, they're still at the club. I mean, the big point for me is the youth system. I know we lost a left back to Arsenal. I think that was a couple of weeks back. These players coming up, why would they want to play Championship football? I know Taylor Hitman signed a 5-year deal, but they'll just be, as soon as they see, I bet that Reyes Cleary will go, and all the other good players. Look, I just don't see a progression with the club. I don't see where the club's going to go in 5 years' time. I just can't see it. All I can see is a downhill. It's going to go downhill.
Yeah, absolutely, Adam. I hear you. I'm concerned at the moment for what the next steps are, but obviously we'll see that in due course. Thank you very much for joining me, Adam. Appreciate that, mate. Thank you. Take care. That's probably all we've got time for here on this first ever Baggies podcast space. Thank you very much for joining me. We'll try and do this again, possibly next week. And a big thank you for everybody who's requested to join, everybody who's come on and had their say. Apologies to everybody who we haven't managed to get on and had their say, but a big thank you for joining and a big thank you for getting involved and listening. This will be made into a nice little YouTube video over on the channel, so that'll be out in due course. But a massive thank you for joining, and we'll see you next time in the next one. Thank you very much and have a fantastic week, Baggies fans. Take care. Goodbye.